welcome to the first installment on my series of videos regarding Buddha nature and awakening to your Buddha path. Throughout this series, I'm going to be explaining the teachings of Buddha, how to apply them in real life, the nature, what Buddha nature is, and exactly what following a Buddha path entails, which is not anything specific for anyone. It's not like a set of rules that everybody has to follow, like many would find in other religions. But before I get into any of that heavier stuff and go into really what Buddhism or Buddha nature or the Buddha path, path of enlightenment, any of that is, I am going to just give you a brief history on how I was awakened to my Buddha nature and I found my Buddha path. It actually happened entirely by accident. I was never seeking enlightenment of any sort. I didn't seek religion. In fact, I was pretty far from it. I was an atheist from probably about the age of 10. I refused to believe in any sort of higher power. And through that, I lived my life entirely through my ego. It was all about myself, even if I wasn't able to see that it was entirely about myself at the time. And this ultimately culminated in my wife, who I absolutely knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with, leaving me. When this happened, it absolutely shattered my world, and it took me down a path that was completely unexpected. I was planning suicide, but before I planned on killing myself, I was going to begin experimenting with the psychedelic DMT. And through my experiences with DMT, I completely accidentally stumbled upon my Buddha path. And ever since realizing this path, it has been number one in my mind. It has been the driving force of my existence, and it is the reason I am still on this world today. When I first began experimenting with DMT, I heard a lot of fanciful stories about people having experiences with aliens or elves or seeing other worlds, having out-of-body experiences, and just finding their consciousness in places other than this physical reality, trapped in this singular body which we identify as the self. When I first started with DMT, my trips were beautiful, and they were terrifying. They were beautiful because I was seeing shapes and colors and hearing sounds that don't exist in this material plane. Things that can exist because of the rules of physics as this reality defines them. Like if we were in a room, we would have walls. We'd have 4 walls. But some of the things you can perceive on DMT, you could be in a room with 4 walls, yet those same walls could be in different places. And it's just the same 4 walls, but they might form a circle, yet they're also a square. Just things like this occur. And they are truly beyond imagining until we see them. And that really is what creates the beauty, I think, of those experiences. But beyond these superficial beauties that I experienced, there was tremendous suffering in many of these trips. And one, in fact, I met a being which is referred to in the psychedelic world as the trickster. It is a being of another realm of consciousness with the power to create and essentially show you your flaws. And in meeting the trickster, he immediately sought to show me how arrogant I was and how insignificant I was. And one of the trips, I went in with the intent of being able to navigate this world beyond the physical and find certain people and accomplish certain goals. Upon doing so, as I was trying to reach my goal, the memory of what my goal was faded from me. I lost sight of what I was trying to achieve. And as I lost sight of what I was trying to achieve, I began to lose sight of who I was. And in fact, all of my memories that create the conscious being that I was at the time began to fade until nothing remained of the I that I thought was me. There were no memories of family or friends, of this planet even. I existed in a timeless void where nothing was there except for my consciousness for an entire eternity. And upon coming out of that, I realized it put me on a path to understand that I wasn't meant to kill myself, but I didn't understand anything about what my path actually was. This came much later, but essentially, after about a year of using DMT, breaking through, finding myself in different realities, I had an experiment, which would be referred to as Enlightened Awareness. On this particular DMT trip, I started out immediately completely forgetting who I was and having a sensation of falling at a speed beyond comprehension as the world folded in on itself in front of me in every direction possible simultaneously. Was hit with a tremendous fear, a fear beyond anything I'd ever felt before, so much so that was all I knew. Eventually, I realized that this fear was the fear of death, because I was experiencing death. And once I realized that, I simply accepted it for what it was. I actually remember in my mind, or wherever it was, whatever thought came across, there it was, oh, I've died. Alright, cool. And then the instant I did that, I was no longer falling. I was suddenly transported into a place of light. It started out as what seemed like a yellow light like you would get from the sun, like seeing directly at the sun. And then slowly, quickly, it's hard to say because time didn't really have any sort of definition in this place. It became clear to me that I wasn't seeing light, that I was in fact the light, and it was a light of consciousness of all of creation. And when I enter there, I keep referring to myself as I, but in the instant that this happened, there was no I. There was a complete dissolution of the ego, and I did not exist. I simply existed within the entire realm of consciousness. And though I could not perceive of reality through these other consciousness, I could feel every single consciousness that there was except for my own. This is the unity, this is love, this is the origin of creation, essentially. And when I woke up from this, I had an undeniable urge to change my life, which I didn't understand at the time, I should say. And it didn't come to me until I actually wrote a book about the experience, and then in writing this book, I realized I needed to study Buddhist text. So I purchased a copy of the Lotus Sutra, and in reading the Lotus Sutra, it immediately sang to me. It was as if the entire book was a mantra itself, a mantra for peace and love. And as I began to turn the pages, I could see my own story within them. And from that moment, specifically the moment that I read the word Tathagata, which is the name that Buddha uses for himself as well as other Buddhas in the Lotus Sutra, I understood what my path was, and it was the Buddha path.